How do you really engage every single student in a room that's just buzzing with different needs, different speeds, and all kinds of energy levels? It is the biggest challenge in teaching, right? Today, we're going to explore a pretty radical solution that totally transforms the learning space itself.
Seriously, just imagine it. What if you walked into a classroom and learning wasn't this one single path that everybody had to trudge down together? What if it was more like a landscape you could explore? A space where knowledge is an exhibit you can actually interact with, go back to, and maybe even add to yourself. That, right there, is the heart of the curated classroom. So, let's break this down. On the left, you've got the classroom we probably all remember, where the single pace means some kids are totally lost while others are just bored out of their minds. But on the right, you have the curated classroom, a space that's built for active, hands-on learning, a place that allows every single student to find their own way. All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to look at what I call the quiet crisis that's happening in so many classrooms. Then we'll dive into this amazing class as exhibition model. We'll see how it creates these unique learning paths for everybody, check out the essential tools a teacher curator needs, and finally, see the incredible results. Let's get into it. Okay, first things first, let's really diagnose the problem. Imagine we have this metaphorical brain scanner, something that can show us cognitive activity. Now, what do you think we'd see if we pointed it at a typical standard classroom?
Well, honestly, we see a lot of unlit brains. That advanced student? Yeah, she finished 10 minutes ago and is now just staring at the ceiling. The student who didn't quite get that key concept last week, he is completely lost right now. And that super active, hands-on learner is just trying with all their might not to fidget. It's pretty clear. The one-size-fits-all approach, it doesn't really fit anyone perfectly.
So, how do we fix this? Well, the solution requires a pretty huge shift in how we think. We have to stop thinking about teaching as just this linear schedule we have to get through, and start thinking of it as curating a physical space for kids to explore. This quote right here just hits the nail on the head. Instead of marching through the curriculum week by week, one foot in front of the other, we lay the whole thing out in the room all at once. So what does that actually look like?
It looks like this. Take a typical semester. It's about 18 weeks long. Let's say for a first or second grade bilingual reading program. Each week's lesson, each concept, becomes its own physical, interactive learning station, an exhibit that you put up on the classroom walls. The entire semester's journey is right there, visible from day one.
And this is what makes something really powerful possible: asynchronous learning. It means in the exact same 40-minute class period, you can have a few students working on the exhibit for week 5, while another group is back reviewing week 2, and maybe a couple of others are even collaborating on week 7. The lockstep is completely broken.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But how does this system actually build a personal tour for those 3 different kids we talked about earlier? The ones whose brains were unlit? How does it help all of them at the same time?
This is where the magic really happens. The advanced learner, instead of just waiting around, they can either jump ahead to the next exhibit or they can become a little teacher, a peer tutor. This is that stage effect we mentioned, where teaching someone else actually deepens your own understanding. The struggling student can quietly go back to an earlier exhibit to fill in any gaps. No shame, no pressure. And our active learner, their need to move is now a feature, not a bug. It's literally how they get their work done.
And you might be wondering, how does that struggling student actually self-repair? Well, this is where a little bit of tech becomes a total game changer. Each exhibit has what we call a digital twin, a simple QR code that kids can scan with a tablet. It gives them instant access to a short video or audio lesson for that specific topic. They can just pop on some headphones and get a private reteaching session anytime they need it. No waiting for the teacher.
Of course, for an exhibition this dynamic to run smoothly, you need the right tools in your toolkit. So let's take a look at what the curator, the teacher, actually uses to make this all work.
First up is something called the thinking thread. Now, this is not just another worksheet. It's more like a cognitive map. For a bilingual reading lesson, a prompt might start with something simple like, draw the story's problem. And then it builds up step by step to, in 2 sentences, explain the solution in both languages. It's designed to literally build that mental pathway from just understanding something to being able to express it.
Next, we make progress something you can see, something you can feel, and honestly, we make it fun. Each student gets their own little token. It could be a car, a rocket, whatever, with their name on it, and it goes on this big track on the wall. Every time they complete an exhibit, they get to physically move their rocket to the next stage. It sounds simple, but it is such a powerful motivator.
All right, Now, this next tool is maybe the most important one of all. It's the reality check. See, to make sure real learning has happened, students don't just finish a task, they have to prove they get it. They use a tablet to record a short video of themselves explaining the concept. This totally breaks the illusion of learning. If you can explain it, awesome, move your rocket forward. If not, no big deal, you just go back to the exhibit for a quick review.
So we've built our exhibition, we've given our students their tour guides, and we've put in that all-important reality check. So what happens now? What happens when we fire up that metaphorical brain scanner again?
The change is, well, it's huge. Just look at this. The zones for bored and lost, they just shrink away. Passive listening basically disappears, and that bar for active engagement, it skyrockets. What we're seeing now is a classroom full of brains that are lit up, active, and working at their own perfect pace.
And this doesn't just change things for the students. It completely transforms the teacher's role. They shift from being a lecturer standing at the front of the room to being a curator and a facilitator moving through it. Instead of just pacing the curriculum, they get to design the entire learning environment, observing and stepping in to help individual students at the exact moment they're needed.
So I want to leave you with this question to think about. If you were to turn your learning environment into an exhibition, what would it showcase? What amazing things might it reveal about the way learning truly happens for your students? Thanks for joining us.